Good evening. And welcome to the January 7th, 2026 Ashland Parks and Recreation Study Session. We just concluded an executive session. There will be no action from that. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gardner,
Here.
Commissioner Weiner,
Here.
Commissioner Bachman,
Here.
Commissioner Adams,
Here.
Commissioner Lant.
Here.
Thank you.
We have one person who would like to speak public forum, and that is Sharon Bryson. If you want to go ahead and step up, we're ready. If you keep it around 3 minutes, that would be good. Yes, would you please, for the record, there you go, you're experienced.
My name is Sharon Bryson, I live in Ashland. I'm here again to discuss the behavior of the parks approval to use bicycling in our neighborhoods.
Okay, you can start over.
Hello, my name is Sharon Bryson. Is it any different? I'm here again to discuss the behavior of the park's approval to use glyphosate in our neighborhoods. The poison has been approved and used for a long time in more distant areas of town. I don't like it at all, but I get it if people want to poison themselves at the golf course and for the purposes of controlling noxious weeds in certain terrain. But bringing that poison into our neighborhoods is beyond appropriate. Most residents I speak to say it's stupid. As I've said before, the claim of worker safety is weak. If this body approves workers to use poison at the expense of exposing innocent children, that shows me priorities are far from responsible. There are reports of incidents. I have not been able to find any data that will back this claim. Last session, there was a House bill on the floor in Salem to ban herbicides in Oregon. It didn't pass, but introduction is the first step. Washington State is far into the process of banning. Eugene, Oregon has a ban, but in Ashland, we are increasing the use. Something's terribly wrong. I don't understand how those of you that have been elected into your positions can make such destructive decisions to allow the department to harm our town. It is of my belief that the parks is a detriment to Ashland. This is a department that can't work within its allotted funds, can't maintain current facilities, and yet want to continue to develop more unaffordable, unnatural eye candy. There are more cost-effective, functional, educational, healthy ways to use parklands in Ashland. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is Ashland Rotary Centennial Ice Rink update, and we have one person who would like to speak to that. And Ed, I'm going to let you tell us your last name because I can't quite get it here. So if you just give us your name and your city for the record.
Yes. Yes, sir. My name is Ed Finkley, and I'm a resident of Ashland, and I am the president of the Ashland Rotary Club, the Noon Club. I came mostly to hear what's going on, but I do want to state that our club invested $25,000 back in 2005 and got the naming rights. Of course, the rink cost much more than that. There was a $100,000 private donation, as I understand it, that ever got it off the ground. But it calls to mind that facility, like the Daniel Meyer Pool, are these examples of public-private partnerships that have existed in our community to have the kind of resources that we have. And we're hopeful that despite this year's setback, that the rink is still part of the Parks Department and is something that is going to continue. Our club did look at making an additional investment in skates. We made a investment about 10 years ago in that trailer where the skates are. That we bought that. And we could invest in skates and looked into that because some of the skates are getting kind of old and there aren't many kids that know how to tie a lace anymore. So it would be appropriate to make that kind of investment in the future. But we have to know, what's going to happen. And I know it's tied in with the park fee. I personally supported the park fee verbally last year before the council. But, and what I said then, I'll say again, our community's kind of at a crossroads. We want this to be a youthful community. We want there to be more kids in school next year than there are this year. And then we have these facilities, which, as I understand, had like 20,000 people coming to it. And when I ever looked over that, you weren't doing it so I can play stick and puck and pretend I'm still in Minnesota. You were doing it for those kids. And we can't both say we want to be a kid community and then let the kid stuff kind of go. So I hope that doesn't happen. I'm here tonight just as myself, but I can say that our club remains committed to that asset and think that it's a great thing that should continue. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, that's the next item. Ashland Rotary Centennial Ice Rink update and Acting Director Dials.
Thank you, everybody. Rachel Dials, Deputy Director, Ashland Parks and Recreation. I wanted to give an update on the Ashland Rotary Centennial Ice Rink. So I'll back up and start from the beginning. We have a seasonal ice rink structure, and we were exploring options to keep it up permanently to reduce costs. We had to get a building permit to go from a temporary to a permanent structure, which included needing to get updated structural plans from the manufacturer, getting an Oregon stamp. We had to work with an architect to complete the application process and ensure the compliance with the Oregon building codes. So what happened during all of that is around the end of October, we were notified by XFS, who is the manufacturer of the tent, that they had laid off their structural engineer prior to getting the Oregon stamp and sending the structural plans. So it sent us into kind of this tailspin of trying to figure out how we were going to move forward and getting the plans. So the current status is that the structural engineer has been retained by XFS, which is the manufacturer, and as of December 29th, they have retained their Oregon license. That's the first good news. So the structural analysis has been completed. The load calculations have been received that are needed to assess the existing footing, that the existing footings are adequate. The structure does not meet the current snow load requirements. We, in talking with XFS and our architect, we have to install, or a contractor has to install things called struts to strengthen the structure to meet the updated snow load requirements. XFS is working on a proposal to provide that. We're waiting for that proposal and hoping to get that. They're saying tomorrow, so we can move forward in planning. This is what those struts would look like. So on each arch, let's see if you see, this is one of the arches of the ice rink. Struts would go across the top and the sides of each of the arches of the rink itself. We have held off on performing the footing analysis because we wanted to wait to see what the kit, how much that was if that's gonna cost, what that looks like before we move forward with the footing analysis, which will take about a week. Then the final permit after that, supposing everything goes well, the final permit documents will take about 2 days to turn around with the architect itself, and then we will submit those to the planning department. So right now we're in a holding pattern. I don't believe we will be opening this season, and we're waiting for more information. So that's where we're at on the ice rink. Are there questions or other things I can answer.
Commissioner Lant?
I'm not sure I quite understand why hold off on the footing analysis. Will it have to be done regardless at some point?
I think that we were concerned about the cost of the snow load kit, if there is a cost associated with that and what that cost is, and moving forward with the footing calculations and not knowing what the cost of the snow load kit and maybe going back to a temporary structure as opposed to a permanent. There's all these kind of what ifs, so we wanted to wait for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Weiner?
So in sort of thinking longitudinally about how the department's thinking about sort of planning on this, it sounds like your intention is getting cost estimates on the struts and what that would be involved in, and then getting cost estimates on modifications of the footings, and it seems possible that in the long run we may say, look, it's cheaper to tear the thing down and put it back up. It would continue to be a functional and approved structure for seasonal use only, torn down, put back up. That would be without any of those modifications. Is that?
So I need to double check on that piece of it, but we're kind of looking at all the alternatives right now. So depending on what the costs come in for the snow load kit, but currently it does not meet the snow load requirements. So I think regardless, we're going to have to get,
Regardless of whether
Yeah.
it's going to be used as a temporary or as a permanent, it would need to meet the snow load requirements.
yeah.
Okay. These numbers and this proposal will come back to commission for sort of review before we move forward with the expenditures, or?
It just depends on the cost, I think, at this point. It's something that we as staff would probably just move forward on if we don't
If
need to
it's
get.
cheap enough. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Chair. So, Director Dials, Deputy Director Dials, so are those new requirements?
They changed since we put the structure up in 2013.
Okay,
So, and when they did the
so
recalculation.
if we would have taken the structure down and then put it back up, would we still have had to do these additional things? Do you know?
No, because it would just be a temporary structure.
Okay, so the footing analysis and the struts are only for a permanent structure? And if
Yeah.
we took it down and
We're
put it back
changing
up?
the use, and
Okay.
so we have to go through all of the requirements.
Thanks.
Continue if there's more, or we'll move on.
That was all about the ice rink. So unless there are more questions, I can move on to Winburn Way.
Well, it just sounds like it's continually changing, and if you just keep us updated
I
between
will-
meetings, that'll be
We
helpful.
will keep the commission updated.
Thank you. Commissioner Lant?
It seems like there's actually a whole lot potentially going to happen in the next week. Is that not correct?
Potentially, yeah.
Well, maybe we should have a placeholder at least on the, for the meeting next week. So if there are updates, you can give them then. Thank you.
Yes.
And that could just be a part of your acting director's report.
We'll discuss
Or that's
where
right.
that's going to fit in.
Or-
But yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
We'll take an update in any form
Okay.
that can be given.
Perfect.
So the next item is 5, which is Winburn Way Safety Update, and it looks like we have Acting Director Dials again and Kevin Caldwell, who is, I'll call you the Park Superintendent for the time being.
I'll take it.
Okay, so just to back up, I presented information on Winburn Way at the December 3rd regular business meeting. Commissioners, you all decided to table any discussion related to the Winburn Way, Granite Street Y intersection at that meeting. So I just wanted to bring everyone up to speed. What you asked for is for staff to bring back renderings of the 2 design options for Winburn Way. One with a center line that incorporates the ADA improvements, and one without the center line that incorporates the ADA improvements. So this first depiction is the no traffic line option with the pedestrian route in green. Across the way here, I don't know if you can see my red pointer. This is the current path that goes up to the Japanese garden. These right here are the 2, the ADA parking and the loading zone behind it. as well as the pathway up to the Japanese garden, the proposed pathway. So this is design option 1 without a center line.
Let's stop there and see if there are questions. I just have a
Yep.
comment. We discussed earlier that the proposed ramp on this drawing, which is the crosshatch ramp, meets all ADA requirements.
The engineer, yes, the
Slope, surface,
the
everything.
drawings that were done by the engineer and what's proposed, which has not been approved by the Parks Commission, is for all ADA, it meets all the ADA
Okay.
requirements.
Which, from my perspective, is the minimum possible, and we may want to consider improving that for usability. Commissioner Long?
Yeah, I respectfully challenge that statement. I don't believe that it does, and because I didn't believe it did, I checked with a local landscape architect, and I showed them the plans that were sent to us yesterday. And the plans show most of the sections, part of it's 4.5% grade, and they're no problem, but the rest of it is 7.5% grade. And with the 7.5% grade, you need to have your resting area, your level area every 20 feet, and this doesn't have them that frequently. It also doesn't include a handrail for the section that's above 5%, and that's also not up to code. And so the question I had, and it's interesting because the earlier plans that we had, quite a while ago that were along with the idea of putting the parking on the volleyball court side, those showed, instead of just a direct line, they showed a zigzag. So taking more run to get to the rise, which means, of course, your grade isn't as great. So when this plan came out looking this way, I asked staff about this. I said, well, because it didn't seem like it'd be able to do it in this shorter length. And they said, oh yeah, it meets the requirements. But I just took that as, okay. But then when I saw the plans that were presented to us yesterday by email, I saw that they really don't meet ADA requirements. So somewhere there's a slip up, and part of the answer might be just to move everything further to the south, let the landing area or the bottom be further to the south. But that probably isn't enough. But anyway, whatever, something needs to be done. These plans do not meet ADA requirements. And I know that the engineers apparently thinks they do, but Karen, the landscape architect that I showed those to, she said they didn't. And as a former landscape contractor and designer, they don't look like they do to me. So I think that the engineers need to justify this before we move forward with this schematic outline.
I'll say too that the previous design of that area, I haven't been able to locate any engineered drawings of the previous approval by the Parks Commission, which incorporated the current walkway and 5 ADA parking spots, or 5 parking spots within the front. And all we can find is just drawings that were done by staff. So maybe there's some somewhere that I haven't been able to locate, but we can certainly double check to ensure that it meets all of the requirements with the engineering company that we've been working with.
Commissioner Weiner?
So there's other concerns with this particular as well. I mean, I actually went and took some photos today. You you'd have to take off some branches of that magnolia tree. You'd have to do some modification to the other. You'd have to build the whole thing up in order so it'd have to be sort of almost on an elevated thing. I think from a design standpoint, it's less than ideal. And the original sort of discussed was I have this particular drive, and it's sort of, I call it the swoop. It swoops over, connects to, and I did find the engineered drawings for that. However, and I can share those with everyone if you'd like. However, the challenge with it was the scope of work on that particular engineering project only included the area getting it from street level to the top of the stairs. And in my obsessive review of the minutes for the past 2 years discussing this, it turns out that Director Houston's claim was that, so there's an additional feature that the side sort of angle of the whatever trail it is, right? There's a 1 to 12, and then you got to have a 5-foot thing, but the side angle can't be more than 2%. And there's an area of there, I actually went and measured it. There's actually an area along that was outside of the scope of that work that was 3%. And so, but presumptively, one could continue with this, get the engineers to redo and normalize the grading on the other. That wouldn't put those trees in harm's way, wouldn't require as much elevation modification as it would be a longer and easier. So that would be my suggestion on that particular area.
Commissioner Gardner.
So I would just say that the absolute necessity is that any new trail would be ADA. I mean, and you know, I agree with Commissioner Lant. We need to double check to see if this option, because as Commissioner Weiner said, back when we were looking at a different scheme altogether, the idea is that instead of going directly towards the Japanese garden, you know, it took a less steep grade and connected with the existing trail that I believe is ADA at some point. So, you know, it's like I want to be able to approve something so we can move forward, but that's the absolute requirement, is either we build it with a landing, you know, if that's what's necessary, but we avoid having to put a handrail because that's excessively expensive, those kind of things. But anyways, that was my comment on this particular portion. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the depiction with no center traffic line. This is the depiction with the center traffic line, as well as the decomposed granite path in the yellow. So the pedestrian route would start up here. They would move to the DG and then move back to the pedestrian route. We already talked about the ADA improvements, but just an update, just the info on the ADA itself, the size of the parking spaces. So this plan I did note that the plan is different than the one that was approved by the Parks Commission back in October of 2024. So that's what you're looking at tonight is different. This is I think you all got this by email, but this is the engineered drawings currently that shows the parking spaces with the landing and the pathway going up to the Japanese garden. And I did receive information yesterday from Public Works Director Scott Fleury, who wanted the Transportation Advisory Committee they wanted to pass along that they did have a meeting on December 18th, and that they are not in support of changes to Winburn Way itself. So their position is to uphold the current arrangement of Winburn Way along Lithia Park, but they were in support of the ADA improvements at the Japanese Garden. That includes parking. The premise was the lack of evidence from crashes and near misses to warrant substantial changes to the existing system.
Commissioner Lunt.
Well, the premise that is listed, I agree. We can't say that we can make something safer in terms of accidents when we don't have any evidence that there have been accidents there. Fair enough. But for me, that's not the reason why we're doing this. It has to do with perception. I've walked that many a time, and I'm always kind of, it's a 30-foot wide free-for-all. And so I'm always looking behind me to make sure a car's not coming or a bike. I'm never really totally comfortable. And by having a designated place for cars and a designated place for pedestrians, in my mind, it allows a little bit more relaxation and comfort. And I think more people will use that, particularly dog walkers, will use that if it is more comfortable. And I think we have an obligation to do something there. And the other reason, which wasn't listed in their premises, is it's a known that by narrowing the street width, it's a known traffic calming measure. And so what we've done is we've narrowed the roadway for automobiles, and that will slow traffic. I mean, that's pretty universally understood. So I think I agree with them that we aren't going to improve the safety statistics, because we really can't. But that's not, for me, isn't the reason we're doing this. We have other good reasons, and we have the city council and the park commission 10, 15 years ago was trying to get sidewalks, and this is a much less expensive than putting sidewalks in. It's hardly even a capital improvement to do it. And so I think that, all due respect to the Traffic Advisory Committee, I think I'm hoping we move forward next week.
I'm in general concurrence with that. I think I said last time we had a conversation that the perception is real to the perceiver, and so, and personally, I had the same experience that Commissioner Lunt just described. I don't like walking in streets if I don't have to, and to have anything that makes it feel less auto-centric, the better. I'm also, I will say that I favor the version without the center line. The center line makes it feel like it's a major artery in Ashland and it has a higher speed limit. And without having a center line, it just feels like a country path. So I just think that's yet another one of those things where, it has more of an ambiance of being in the middle of the park, particularly with taking these other measures for the pedestrians. And then I would just add, I had a very good experience up in Newport last October, following their ADA path up over the bridge by the bridge that goes over the river. And it was concrete, but at every switchback there was a landing. So if you're working your way up there in a wheelchair under your own power, you could stop, get off on a level spot, and then. So somewhere, it's either switchbacks or landings. And I do want to move this to action if we can do it with a requirement, and this is just, we'll work this one out on our own, that this be re-engineered to, again, beyond meeting minimum ADA standards so that it's more user-friendly to somebody that's not in an electric wheelchair, that has to do the work, or some person has to push them up. So that's kind of where I'm leaning for next week. Anybody else? Back to Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Chair. So I would like to suggest we have this design, we have both of these designs here, and I don't think it's a either or. I think the moving the pedestrian path onto a granite pathway by the pickleball courts is important to the overall concept. I was kind of surprised to see that as soon as you put a center line in, that happens, and then you take the center line out and it goes away. I don't think that needs to be that way.
No,
I think
yeah.
you can design this with no center line and use the path to widen the space that vehicles have to move on Winburn Way around the parking is my suggestion. And once again, I think we need to, I totally agree with Commissioner Law and Commissioner Bachman that, we need to ensure beyond a shadow of a doubt that the walkway is ADA, and if it means a landing someplace or a few more yards of walkway, I think that's important to make it right and make it work. Thank you.
Chair, if I may, in response to the ADA design, I think you guys only saw the one drawing. Am I correct? This one?
We got all the drawings.
You got the whole package?
With the side.
So if you look at the profile, it does that to help meet the specs. The ADA specs are not a secret. I'm fully confident that our design engineers have designed a path to meet the specs. Now, if we go to change things, then we'll have to reevaluate, obviously. But I'm confident what we have now meets the specs.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiner and then Commissioner Long.
Thanks, and I did look at those, and I reviewed I'll just say I reviewed the ADA specs, and it actually meets spec. It's 5 foot for every 2.5 foot gradient and 30 foot distance. So it does, but it has other challenges that I think that we can do better and make a more easy gradient. However, as I said, I dug through a lot of stuff, and I really, I guess I don't hate to do this. I'm going to do it anyways. Blow the whole discussion up, but I looked all the way back to the original approval for what was considered what this body, with some current members and some previous members, wanted and approved, which was 4 or 5, I think it was, off-street, out of Winburn Way slots. With a crosswalk leading to this particular, and again, I'll say the swooping kind of a thing, and reviewing and listening to and watching that particular meeting recorded online, the discussion was, well, it'll be cheaper to just paint them in there, and it'll be a pilot, temporary, because we don't know what we're going to do with Winburn Way. I think we've heard pretty well that the city and the TAC and others have advised not closing down Winburn Way, which I think was in consideration at the time in one or both directions. And so I really have to ask this commission if we think that this is actually the direction we want to go now, or should we actually maybe take a look at the original proposal that was planned. I'll say, when this first came up, Commissioner Adams voted against it and felt that it posed certain hazards. And I guess I would suggest further, and I'm perplexed by the fact that we still haven't even bothered to price out what a DG path out of the roadway, which would give not just perceived safety, but actual safety. So I don't know why I don't understand why we're so hell-bent on encroaching on the roadway when there are other options that could be considered. It's perplexing to me, and I'd love for someone to explain.
Commissioner Lunt?
Well, I'm not going to explain at this point, because that's not what I've got the floor for. I want to talk about two things. Number one is, unless I'm reading the plans wrong, and they don't say that most of it is this is ADA portion, unless I read it wrong, and they don't say 7.5% grade. That's what I read. So if somehow that's wrong, then that's a different story. But if that's true, then and unless I didn't see the rails someplace on here, which there aren't rails, okay, then this does not meet ADA standards. And I think there's other ways it doesn't. But that's just by looking at the plans. It does not meet the standards, period. So I really think that this needs to be looked at carefully and not just say, hey, it looks like it meets the standards. It clearly, at least in part, does not meet the standards. And I think it doesn't in the terms of the amount of flat areas, whatever, the rest areas. I don't think that does either, but I'm less confident of that. But I'm just going by what it says on the plan. If there aren't rails, those expensive rails aren't there, then this plan does not meet ADA standards. That's my first point. I want to go back to the plan that shows the
I just want to stop you there for a second. We're talking about a matter of fact here, and I don't want to just argue about who's got the right facts. So we'll need to establish that at an office meeting and resolve that, not here tonight. Okay, so second point.
If you go back to the plan, it shows the dotted line on the street. Yeah. I thought about this, whether we need a center line or not, and I suppose it isn't that important for most, but I'm wondering whether it wouldn't be nice to have the center line for the portion where the decomposed granite pathway is, because there aren't always going to be cars parked there, but it's going to be but you're asking vehicles to make a little bit of a turn there. And I think to have a center line to help guide people to the right place in that small location would make sense to me.
Commissioner Gardner, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair, I did. So I want to remind the commission that the reason why we're looking at this plan versus the other plans is because this is the most cost-effective plan. That's why we're looking at this. The other plans are,
Talk to me.
the other plans will be more expensive. They'll be more intrusive into the park. They'll change the nature of the park. And what this plan does is follows the general area that people currently walk, but as Commissioner Lunt said, we can't improve the safety, but it is a safety project. It's trying to make the experience less challenging by showing people where they can walk and showing vehicles where they should be. There was some information that came in from the public about the downside of center lines, making it look like you could actually pass a car because there's a lane kind of thing, which, the person that sent that in seemed like they had a lot of good information, and that's why I questioned the need for a center line. And quite frankly, if there's no cars in the ADA parking, then there's no conflict. It doesn't. You don't really have to show people how to go around the space if there's no cars there. It's not really, to me, it's not that important. And I think I think it would, if you only had a center line in a certain spot, might make it even more confusing than if you had nothing, but that's just my personal observation there. And I agree with the Chair Bachman, it's like, we just need to ensure that the architectural designs that you guys brought, that you're behind, is like, we just need to make sure that that's an ADA plan it's going to be, actually going to be workable. And then, I just want to make sure that isn't incorrect. Because just to point out, so there's a 8-foot landing right next to the parking spots. So that's where people decar, and that's where you would start your maneuver in either a walker or a wheelchair or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah, so, thank you.
There are several reasons I want to move forward with this. One of them is we have needed since we opened the Japanese garden some sort of ADA parking, and this is the quickest way to get it. It doesn't preempt doing something later. We could decide to put in more parking in that general area and move the parking to wherever. It provides a better path through here for walkers. Whether it's the best path, once again, we're coming to the, perfect, there is no perfect solution. It's in my opinion, and I'll go out there and take this with me and walk it. It'll feel better than some of the choices one needs to make now when one's walking. It's minimally expensive. It's not really a capital project in a common sense of the word. It's an improvement. I don't want to go back. I don't want to start the process over. I want to add on to it. So I think we can meet some of Commissioner Weiner's objections simply by thinking of it this as a first phase and rolling in. I think we have a whole lot of work to do on ADA in the park. And we may want to focus on that as one of our strategic goals for the 10-year plan, which we'll be revisiting before too long. And this would just be the beginning of that whole conversation. So I support moving forward, getting it done, and then thinking about the next layer of parking in that part of the park, because there's not enough parking in the park. Or either that, or we get more people walking out of their cars, or at least fill the cars with people instead of one person per car. Commissioner Lunt.
Just one more thing. I don't disagree with Commissioner Weiner's idea of a granite path adjacent, particularly from the point shown here downhill to by the bench hill. I think that really, yes, that's a better solution, but it's going to take may take some retaining walls. It's going to be a bit more challenging. But long term, I think that's what we ought to be moving. Just the same way that I think down by the band shell we have an area that's where the parking is, the turnaround at the band shell where the ADA parking is. There's no sidewalk. You have to actually go out in the street behind cars to get there. I mean, there should be a sidewalk there. There's some things we can really do to improve, but it's going to be incremental, and I really believe that this is an inexpensive first step towards that. Thank you.
Well, after all that, you want to repeat back what you think you have going into next week?
So what I'm hearing for next week is to bring back these two options for discussion, as well as confirming that the ADA route is compliant with the ADA standards. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay. And I'll just suggest, and we'll get back to you two guys here, that you connect with Commissioner Lunt on agreeing that what is and isn't ADA standards, and then Commissioner Weiner and then Commissioner Lott one more time, and then we're going to wrap it up.
I mean, I thought we had discussed taking a look at the other option, which is the originally previous option. I'll tell you right now, there's absolutely no way, even though I think we're going to find that it does meet ADA, there's no way that I can support putting in a path that's going to require harm to those trees. There's absolutely no way that I can support any movement that would require us to carve up that magnolia. And so if we're not looking at some way of protecting or preserving that, I couldn't support it, period.
Is that a risk?
My understanding is there was no tree removal discussion in the.
So it's not a risk. We don't need to consider that?
Yeah, we do encroach upon the magnolia, and there is one lower branch that would have to be removed. But the tree itself would remain if we chose that.
I think that actually we discussed the third option, which is what we see here without the center lines.
Okay.
Because the other option without the center lines does not show the decomposed granite pathway.
Right, that would take care of.
With the DG path.
Commissioner Gardner's observation. It was kind of just random that wasn't there, yeah. So having it clarified would be good. Okay, we're going to call that wrapped, and the next item is 6, which is the look-ahead review. So Deputy, or rather Acting Director Dials, if you would just point out a few of the key items
Sure.
on
So we have a regular business meeting next week. There'll be election of chair, vice chair, golf course report, and then we'll have Winburn Way as an action item. There will be a joint meeting with City Council in February, on February 11th. And
which we'll be hosting here, and we're going
which
to
we will be hosting.
do it the way the council did last time. We'll have a joint session first, and then they can go, and then we'll
And we'll
hold
do
a
our regular
regular meeting afterwards, yes. And I'll just point out that we want to make sure we have an ice rink update in that meeting,
Yes,
in any,
that is-
some form, okay? And then joint meeting and Kaye agreement is the meeting after that. Our meeting, same night after the joint meeting. And then we will be well into the year. Any other, anybody want to add something here or clarify what's on the, it's a short-term one. We still want to work, but we're paddling as hard as we can right now to keep getting things done. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. I don't have any meetings to talk about. They're going to be on next week's agenda, so I think we have reached the end of the agenda. Anybody have anything to say? Meeting adjourned.